Hello BookTube. For the second tag, I'm going to be doing this tag Tuesday. I will be doing the reading taste tag. This tag was created by Harriet Rosie, and I saw it originally on a Book Olive's channel. I'll have links to both channels in the show notes below, as well as a copy of the prompts and the books mentioned that I'm going to be using for props in this video. So, question number, and once again, I'm trying different filming locations in my room. This time I am in front of the history wall, which is a rather tight fit, all things considered. So once again, let me know how the lighting looks, how the background looks, whether this is a good filming location. I used to film over here when I first got this computer, I think filmed over here, but then moved to my desk. But anyway, let me know how this looks and how everything looks, and I'll kind of do a bit more experimenting before I settle on a new filming setup. But anyway, let's get going with the prompts, because this one might take a bit of time, and the earlier tag did take a bit longer than I thought it would. But anyway, so question number 1. Describe your reading taste in one sentence. Unsettled. I'll just do it in one word. Unsettled. My reading taste is very much unsettled. And I don't want it to be. Prompt number 2. Describe your reading taste with categories, genre, age, length, etc. So I'm going to break things down by genre, and I'm going to start with nonfiction. So for me, nonfiction is very much all history all the time. I have a very small, not history nonfiction collection. I would like to expand it, but I just never have the time. There are so many works of history that I really want, and other things as well, but it's mostly history. I mean, given that this was accumulated in less than 5 years. So as far as history is concerned, I like popular history that has a bit of an academic rigor. And I like academic history that is more narrative, more well written, and isn't necessarily trapped by weird breakdowns. And I like particular periods. Obviously, I started off with a love of the ancient Near East and the Hellenistic period, particularly the sort of the successor empires to Alexander the Great's empire. But I've also learned to sort of fall in love with like Texas history, which I had never thought I would. Also, I'm developing a bit of a sweet tooth for Middle Eastern history, German history, British history, just so much more. Just interesting. For manga, it's shonen manga, which is manga or Japanese comics, and they're broken down by age demographic genres. They then have their own genres within them. So I like shonen manga, which is the most popular. It's geared towards middle grade, young adult, new adult boys, and they're typified by, for the most part, action adventure stories, and a lot of the really popular ones are science fiction and fantasy, which is what I love. I mean, I love science fiction and fantasy fiction, so I love it in manga as well. And I also like American superhero comics, although I haven't really kept up with that for a while. I wish American comics were a bit more I don't know. I need to actually give that a lot more thought. So moving on to poetry, I tend to like modern and contemporary poetry or at least published by university presses. For fiction, I love science fiction and fantasy, space opera, and more recent space opera for science fiction, because I do find science fiction tends to date a little too much for my taste. So I'm not really a huge fan of vintage science fiction. And for fantasy, it's epic fantasy and sword and sorcery. Although there are other subgenres I like as well. As far as other genres are concerned, I'm not as into it as I used to be, particularly like say mysteries. It's all Agatha Christie all the time. And other genres, I'm just not that interested in. And my reading relationship with literary fiction is on the I really should leave it alone, but I just can't for some weird reason. And so my taste in literary fiction is just downright. It's a miracle I like it when I like it. But again, I really should kind of heavily cycle through that section. Let's save that for another video. So prompt number 3 is show us a few books that represent your reading taste. So for history, Reavers, Scribes, and Kings by Amanda H. Podany. This is a wonderful history of the ancient Near East that looks at the history of cuneiform writing. It is brilliant, irreverent, funny. I love it. This is really history as it should be. Particularly, I would love to see more works of ancient Near Eastern history and ancient Egyptian history really written in this style. It is amazing. I'm hoping her earlier book, A Brotherhood of Kings, is as fun as this. So, The Age of Decadence by Simon Heffer. This is a history of Britain between 1880 and 1914. So, the end of the Victorian period and the whole of the Edwardian and the early Georgian period. And of course, A Big Wonderful Thing by Stephen Harrigan. This is a massive, wonderful history of Texas that is, again, history as it should be written. This is just wonderful. So for manga, I'm going to go with Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. This is my favorite manga series. I have loved it for well over a decade, and I just recently collected the entire series and did a massive reread of it earlier this year, and it was amazing fun. For poetry, I'm going to go with Larvae of the Near Stars by Catherine W. Carter and Flyover Country by Austin Smith. For science fiction and fantasy, I have 4 that I pulled down from that sort of shelving unit I have in here, not the science fiction out in the hall. I have Nine Fox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. Radiance by Catherine Valenti for the science fiction, part of science fiction and fantasy. And for the fantasy, The Still Remains by Richard K. Morgan. And The Blood Print by Asma Zahanet Khan. And for literary fiction, I have 3 examples. First is Charming Billy by Alice McDermott, which I am amazed that I like this book as much as I do. Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, translated by Sophie Hughes. Again, how I like this book is beyond me, but I really enjoyed it. I just don't quite understand why. And The Swimming Pool Library by Allan Hollinghurst, which I have mixed feelings for. I periodically love it, and yet also bail on it every few times I try to read it. It's unsettled. My reading taste is very much unsettled and contradictory. Prompt number 4: a book you didn't enjoy that seemed like it would be your taste. Well, let's see here. Red Memory by Tania Branigan. I'll talk a bit more about it this weekly reads. Also, Courting India by Nandini Das. I liked it quite a bit, but it didn't quite hit the mark for me. Maybe it was just too much Sir Thomas Rowe, and not enough Jahangir. You can never do wrong with more Jahangir. Prompt number 5: a book you enjoyed that didn't seem like it would be your taste. Definitely Hurricane Season by Fernando Melchor. I am shocked that book worked as well for me as it did. Prompt number 6: show us some books on your TBR that seem like they will be exactly your taste. Let's see here. I haven't quite settled on what I'm going to read this next week, but I think, well, I'm hoping Young Queens by Leah Redmond Chang will be a hit for me. I think it will be, but I don't know for sure. Prompt number 7: a booktuber you watch who has similar tastes to you. I would say, I think Steve Donahue, particularly when it comes to history, although I think I'm a bit harsher on fiction than he is. But I don't know if there are any booktubers who have a really nearly similar taste to mine, but except for Steve when it comes to history. Prompt number 8: have you always had this taste in books, or has it changed over time? So, as I usually say in these kind of questions, my tastes have changed. I periodically go through a taste change where genres that have been my dominant reading focus have changed. And my interest in those genres decline to perhaps near nil. So starting with my preteen years, I was really interested in mystery fiction. I could not get enough of it. Not only Agatha Christie, but several other mystery writers as well. But after a few years, it dried up. Absolutely dried up. I did not read mysteries except for very periodically until relatively recently, and even then, it's still really periodic and all Agatha Christie all the time, and all Agatha Christie occasionally, I guess. I really don't have any interest in other mysteries, and even right now, I haven't read an Agatha Christie. I don't think I've read her in over a year now. So from mysteries, it moved to science fiction and fantasy, which was my favorite taste for a very long time, almost 20 years, with some sort of co-regency. Particularly like earlier on, I also really liked what I'm currently calling literature, which is sort of the snobbish stuff that I liked in my late teens and early 20s when I was a college student. But science fiction and fantasy was still my first love, and I think I focused on it a bit more than I did actual literature. And then the literature really was about maybe a 5-8 year period from about 17 or so to about 23, 24. And then with me actually becoming an active booktuber, at the end of 2019, my taste started to change again, where I just could not really get into the science fiction and fantasy I was reading, and I just discovered a real love of history. And the wall behind me is the blooming of that change. So yeah, my tastes have definitely changed over the years. And sometimes it's, well, I don't remember having as much issue with my change from mystery to science fiction as I am my science fiction and fantasy to history. So I gotta go. Thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.